Must be nice. It must be nice. Have a young quarterback they can actually believe in. A young quarterback that actually plays like a star. A young quarterback that you can hitch your wagon to and he can take you far. Must be nice. Must be really nice. I would have no idea what that feels like. So I could only imagine, it's just a guess, how good it must be to be a Baltimore Ravens fan. I won a couple of Super Bowls in the past 25 years. Relatively consistent, contending, competitive organization. One of the class organizations in the league. Like one of those pillars and bedrocks that you want to base your foundation off of. Must be nice. And then to be able to get somebody like a Lamar Jackson with the last pick of the first round in 2018, as four other quarterbacks have already won, pay very little price in order to go get that guy and bring in this young, hungry man and be able to, customize your offense around him and put him in situations and opportunities to be spotlighted and succeed must be really nice. 2 years, well, a year and a half, I guess, if you go back to 2018. Year and a half at the helm. Ravens have made the playoffs twice, won a bunch of games with the young kid at quarterback. Must be nice. Must be real nice. And I'm sure if you're a Ravens fan, it's also nice and also disappointing because you have some frustration there because you looked at this team and you said, man, after the 2-2 start, this was a team that had really put it together and won their last 10 games in a row. 12 games in a row. I can't even count right now. It's like ridiculous. They had that couple of months stretch where they didn't lose anything. Like they were beating everybody. They were taking on all challengers and beating everyone. So you're thinking, hey, number one seed. Hey, best record. Hey, home field advantage. Hey, the playoff route in the AFC has to come through Baltimore. And then you go into the playoffs and you kind of lay an egg. Again. And you have some concerns about what you saw to Lamar in this playoff run again because he was not very good, especially at key moments in time. And that certainly is true. You could also beg the question of where the hell was the defense at key moments in time? It wasn't Lamar Jackson that was getting his teeth kicked in by freaking Derrick Henry and that Titans offensive line. But nonetheless, it's the name of the game when you talk about the quarterback position. Gets all of the credit, even when they don't deserve it. And depending on who the quarterback is, they either get all the blame or they get none of the blame. Just depends. But I can understand if you're a Ravens fan, you're sitting there saying, man, this team was so hot. You have the league's MVP. It's a team that could really run the ball. You have this great defense, and you think there's a chance that you can go to the Super Bowl. Especially once the Titans have eliminated the Patriots, you're like, yeah, well, the Patriots weren't quite the same. But at least God knowing we don't have to contend with Brady, well, maybe you would have wanted to. And the Titans came in and pushed that shit out. It's got to be tough. But what can you do? But learn from it, grow from it as an organization, and look forward to potentially 2020 taking that next step, similar to what the Chiefs did in 2018 season. Get to the AFC Championship game. End up making the big comeback, forcing overtime. Then D4 jumps off sides, and you all know what happens there. But the Chiefs come back the next year, make it all the way through, and win the Super Bowl. If you're the Ravens, that's what you're trying to emulate here. That's what you're trying to get. The young quarterback that's the MVP of the league 1 year, the next year you come back, maybe the team is slightly different, but they're better in key moments and clutch spots, and they can come through and win those tough games and come from behind and always be a threat. Like, if you're a Ravens fan, you want to pattern yourself after the Chiefs because the Chiefs did it, won a Super Bowl. You want to do the same thing here with Lamar Jackson ultimately. You ultimately want to sit there and make more progress, go all the way in 2020. Then you can say, we're going to sign Lamar Jackson to a long-term deal and be done with it. And let's worry about the next decade. That's what you're kind of looking at. I'll be interested to see what happens with that offensive line with the retirement of, I think future Hall of Famer Marshall Yanda. Like this is a long-time staple over a decade inside at guard on that offensive line. Now that you don't have him, how are you going to replace him? How much will that impact that offensive line? Certainly, you would think it would have to impact it some. This team went out there and clearly felt like they needed to get better along their defensive front and went out there and brought in Derek Wolfe and then got Calais Campbell from the Jaguars for peanuts, basically. Like, hey, let's look at the Ravens, already a pretty good team with a pretty good defense, and let's give them a stud up front for really nothing. What was it, a fifth-round pick? Genius. And then you get Tavon Young, I think is returning from the neck injury. He wasn't there much in 2019. I was really feeling good about this Ravens team, and then all the turmoil and drama that happened with Earl Thomas and ultimately leading to him getting released, and I'm sitting there saying to myself, will that impact this team negatively, or could this potentially impact the team positively? Is this a situation of addition by subtraction? I like to think a player the caliber and quality of Earl Thomas, you would never be better off by getting rid of him, but maybe he was such a raging painness in the anus that it might be better off that you don't have him there. You get rid of a distraction, you get rid of a guy that's killing team morale. This might have been the right type of culture of the organization, Ravens way type of statement that John Harbaugh and DaCosta made to send a message saying we're not going to play that crap. It could be, who knows? Now, when you look at this team, what's impressive to me about the Ravens is not only do they have a core of a team that won a crap ton of games this year, brings back a lot of last year, brings back a crap ton of that core this year, you can certainly make the argument that they got even better in the draft. Like, how did the Ravens manage to pull this off? Sitting there at the end of round one, Patrick Queen, the linebacker from LSU, falls into their lap. He'll be a day one starter. J.K. Dobbins, the running back from Ohio State, they're in round two. For a team that already has guys like Mark Ingram, and I'm probably going to forget somebody. Who do you got? You got Lamar Jackson in the running game, obviously. You got Mark Ingram in the running game. Who else you got? Gus Edwards, Justice Hill. Now you add a J.K. Dobbins into the mix. Like, that should just be illegal. Malik Harrison in the third round from Ohio State. Like, here's another guy probably going to start inside at linebacker, if not at the beginning of the year, surely soon enough. So an area of weakness on that defense, inside linebacker, they were actually able to get a couple of guys that are going to come in and should be able to make some immediate impact, get more depth in their running game. Like, it's just criminally unfair that a team like the Ravens is allowed to do that, and yet here we are. So as you can imagine from listening to and hearing my tone, I think there are a lot of reasons for optimism with this Ravens team. They're the best running team in the NFL and still loaded there. It might be even more loaded with the addition of J.K. Dobbins. And if anything, it might allow you to utilize Lamar Jackson a little less in that type of role. A defense that was elite last year may have gotten better, especially with the addition of Calais Campbell, the drafting of guys like Patrick Queen and Malik Harrison. You could say, well, you lose in Earl Thomas, but that might not be the worst thing in the world. Got another year of development for Lamar Jackson in this Ravens offense and this Ravens system, another year of development for him as a passer. Hopefully getting more out of some of the young talent around him. A lot of reason for hope here. This is a really good team that wasn't killed by the offseason. You got the reigning MVP coming back as your quarterback, who, by all intents and purposes, while statistically I would almost put money on it for sure that he won't be the same in 2020 as he was in 2019. The fact is he might not need to be, yet still be a better quarterback and have the team more readily positioned to make a real deal Super Bowl run. Lots of reason, I think, for optimism with the Ravens right now. And as always, just like with any team, you can point out weaknesses or potential areas of concern. I think one is how close is Lamar Jackson really going to come to his 2019 performance? Like, similar to Patrick Mahomes in 2018, even if he had played all 16 games in 2019, he's just not going to come close to that level of performance. Like, it's really hard to bank on that. 5,000 plus yards, 50 touchdowns. Like, how many guys have ever been able to do that? You know what I mean? Like, it's a damn near once-in-a-lifetime type of season. And Mahomes did it. It's really hard to come back and repeat. But last year, while it was a little less, the team was better overall, and they went all the way. So the hope is with Lamar Jackson, maybe a little less spectacular in terms of the statistics and a little bit better when it matters and when it truly counts. And this team could go all the way. That young receiving core, you're going to have to hope, I would assume, Hollywood Brown's going to be more of a playmaker in year two. Like, I really like the tight ends that they have. but you need more on the outside, and you need these guys to contribute to be better, more consistent weapons in the passing game for Lamar Jackson. It certainly would help. You look at that defense, if you're looking at one or potentially both of the rookies in Queen and Harrison starting inside at linebacker, there's certainly going to be mistakes made, certainly going to be learning and growing opportunities there. Like, how much would it impact them to potentially have both of those rooks starting in the middle of that defense from day one, or even at some point in time during the year? Maybe that will, play itself out over the course of the year and end up being a strength for them. How much will the team miss Marshall Yanda and Earl Thomas? I think they won't miss Earl Thomas at all, because if they did, they probably wouldn't have cut him. I think Marshall Yanda could potentially be the greater loss, as this is a guy, a stalwart of that offensive line for years, a benchmark type of player, a guy that, just represented the Ravens. He was one of those dudes in the locker room, and he's not there anymore. So certainly there's going to be some impact there, but I just don't know if it's going to be enough to really make it that much of an impact in the grand scheme of things. I still look at this Ravens team, and I think, while on the one hand I expect every team in this division to be better than it was last year, I still think the Ravens are the class of this division in 2020. Now, where the difference comes in is, instead of them winning, 13, 14 games, it's more of an 11 or 12 win type of season. But having to battle with an improved Bengals team twice, potentially an improved Browns team twice, potentially an improved Steelers team twice, could actually make this Ravens team more battle tested when it comes to the big time in the playoffs. Now, what that means for Lamar Jackson and his clutch abilities in those big game situations, we will see. But if this Ravens team could come out of this and win this division, win 11 or 12 games, and put themselves in a good spot, you got to feel good about them being battle tested and being able to take 2020 and potentially create a much different ending for all of you Ravens fans than what you got last year.